You're listening to The Craft Wellness, Tools for Creating Wholeness. All right, today on the Craft Wellness podcast, we have Heather Rose Goodman from Sister Roots. Welcome.
Thank you. I'm so happy to be here with you today.
Excellent. So I'm having her on today because we're going to talk about breath work and the importance of breath work in your body and in your life. You want to speak on that for us?
Absolutely. I just, let's go to the very root. There's a reason I like to go to the root, which is why Sister Roots and Brother Roots and all of the work that we're doing in community is about the root of the matter. How do we arrive as human beings? And you're a mother, so I almost want to present this to you. When you birth these beautiful babies, you know, when they get here, what's the first thing they do when they come out of you?
Take a big old breath.
Woo!
Yeah.
So I just feel like if we can know that at the very beginning, our root is the breath. This is so important because it's not this like far away thing that do we know where it is and what the heck, you know, it's like, and so this mirrors something so important about all other aspects that they're not far away from us. They're actually our very nature, but why are we not so close to them? What the heck is going on if we don't even know we're breathing most of the day? Or what is going on if we don't even know we're in our bodies? Or what is going on if we don't even know how sun comes through, right? So there's all of these aspects that are modeled in the very breath about everything else in the world, which is why yoga, meditation, these practices that say breath, breath, breath are so fascinatingly empowering because they're not trying to like lose you in all of these other realms. They're just like, hey, right here, the most basic, the most fundamental, the most foundational. So I feel like one of the coolest things when I was on this beginning, like I was backpacking through Asia. There's lots of different parts of my detangling, I guess, and like kind of just being like post-college, got a first job, quote, I hate calling it a real job because every job is real, even if you didn't have a college degree, but this whole idea that you're going into a different kind of job, whatever. So I did what I thought I was supposed to do and got to this point where I was like 6 months in, gave it my all. It was a nonprofit working with at-risk youth, and I was doing community partnership, and it was, I mean, probably one of the coolest jobs for my heart and for being aligned. And I still knew like the 9 to 5 and the flow of everything in my like insides was like, this isn't it. This isn't it. And I had just started being on the yoga mat like 6 to 8 months, maybe even a year at that point. So I was like falling in love with my breath and my body in a way that was so not mental. And I was like, wow, what is going on? And so when I did yoga teacher training, I was like, I need to get to the root of this practice. I need to go to Nepal. I want to see what's happening. And I steeped in this practice called Vipassana, which is a style of meditation. And I was in Cambodia for this experience, my first one, 10 days. When you enter in its noble silence, you turn in your phone, you don't have any music, you don't have any books. Basically, like they want to rid you of every distraction because as we know, there's so much sensation in our days, right? Like we're the information era. So you take noble silence, and for 10 hours a day of those 10 days, you're meditating, you're sitting, and you're watching the breath in your nostrils, and you're looking above your upper lip, and there's a little bit of discourse from a teacher at the night, and you have your breakfast, lunch, and dinner, and then you could have walking, but you couldn't do yoga, like you couldn't do asana, you couldn't do like, it was just sitting in silence, eating your meal, going to bed. And talk about like insanity, like you know, every day you wake up and you go into the dining hall for breakfast and you see like day 2 and you feel like it's been an eon already, and you're like, day 2 and I have 8 more, like day 4 I'm gonna die, like, you know. But what it was doing in me was creating a foundational beginning of my meditation practice that was so bare bones. It was like breath right here in front of the nostrils, right here in front of them. And you think so many people come to meditation very confused about what should be happening. They think they should, if they're succeeding, they should have no thoughts. That's, yeah, right. Like only if you're extremely advanced and have practice delving into like picking stuff apart will you get to a place where you have an empty mind and you feel like, oh, when I sit now, it's just spacious and I just feel so profoundly vast. It's not that that's not possible. So I don't want to say that that won't come
Mhm.
from meditation, because it will, but not for anybody in a Western reality. And for a lot of people who just begin, it's just going to be thoughts on thoughts on thoughts. So the idea that you can always come right to the breath and that you can always feel it right away, it's like slightly insane and slightly helpful, because
Right.
you're working with so many things. Even though you don't know, you might think like, god, what I want a visualization, I want something else, take me grander, take me away from, but it's like right here, it's like right here, basics, this breath right above your lip, right into your nostrils. So that was my beginning teacher to the practice. It was very simplified, and
Yeah,
I
everything's stripped away. Yeah.
exactly. So then once you, that's what informs all the work that we do in our workshops with Sister Roots and Brother Roots. It's like, hey, you've probably built up a life of some sort at this point. Whenever somebody comes in, right? Their castle is there, whether they actually believe it's their castle and they love it, or it's some figment of their imagination castle. But the roots and the foundation are shaky as fuck. Like, and it is not rock solid for them because it's a lot of lies. It's a lot of like pretend. It's a lot of mainly unawareness, like mainly for people that they just didn't look. They just didn't even know that they were allowed to look and that they were allowed to say, hey, I'm going to question everything. Because when we start to question everything, like you said about deconstructing who you are so you can reconstruct who you are. So
Yeah.
we can't reconstruct if you're not going to allow deconstruct, because the reality is that most of us have to unlearn a lot to get to this place where we're actually feeling truly empowered from our
Yeah.
own insides. And
Yeah.
so then that means we have to kind of break everything down. The building has to crumble. And when I was in Nepal, the earthquake had just happened a month and a half before, in April of
Oh,
2015. 8,000, almost not like, I think it was like 8,500 people had passed. When I got to some of the holiest sites that I was so excited to visit because I wanted to go to the roots of these places, they were in rubble. I found that to be extremely symbolic for my own self, but also what I
right.
was going to be asking people to do for the rest of their life. Like, I know when someone comes to say, hey, I'm going to come do this work with you, they're being so brave, because they're saying in some way to their deepest self, a lot's going to have to crumble.
Yeah. I often tell my clients, or even just people in my life, that sometimes things have to fall apart in order to be put back together the right way.
Yeah. And I don't know if it's sometimes. You know, like
Sure,
and
it's
I say,
probably all the time. It's probably every time. Every
I
time
think
something falls apart, there's a reason for it.
I, and we've done unless you were really, it's so uncommon, but it's possible that you were raised by someone who really provided an environment of inner exploration and freedom. And so from a young age, you were trying things on and finding out what it was for you. And so then, yes, that person might have less of a breakdown moment in their life, but that, I just think it's inevitable that the point that someone gets most empowered in who and what they really are is when all the bullshit falls away.
Right.
So it has to be from like a moment that's like a divorce or a loss of something or a sickness that arises like cancer, or, and you hear all of these moments where people come, I'm sure they've come to you, I know they've come to me, most people come ready to change their life
Yeah.
because life showed them, sorry, it's destroyed now. And they were like, there's no other, I can't pretend anymore with myself,
Right.
right? So
Right.
I'd like to say that people will get to us before that moment. I want that one day, that it won't have
Yeah.
to be that it's been a shit show,
Right.
but for the most part, we're doing too much trying to like, we've done such a good job saying, here's my shell and here's my next shell and here's my other shell. And I hope this shell looks good for me. And I hope it looks good for you. That, you know, so it has to come down. And I tell people that all the time. I'm like, if you're breaking, it's good. And I know that is so confusing because we have all of these, and you know this because of the Rolfing and all the stuff you were sharing about the body work. We have all of these patterns in the body that have learned to be protectors and
Right.
grippers and
Yes.
stiffers and all. And so you see that in how someone sits, and you see that in how someone walks, and you see that in how someone talks, and you're like, They are boxes within boxes within boxes.
Yeah. Oh yeah. They're, yeah.
And we want them to be rivers. We want them to be
Right.
fluid. We come
Yes.
in a womb. We come, our home is a womb center, all beings, right? So we know fluid. We're 70 something percent fluid.
Mhm.
So once we start contacting, going inside, and at first it's so overwhelming because you're like, I feel like a statue. I look like this. I talk like this. And I want to be more free, but everything in me is so constructed.
Right.
And so it's so brave when people come to any of us, right, saying, okay, I'm now willing for things to change, because inevitably change is always occurring. But
Yeah.
so many people are saying, no, no, I want to keep the routine. No, no, too scary. I need security. No, 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 no. And so when that moment changes from unwillingness, like one of my teachers says, anything you do unwilling is your hell. Anything you do willing is your heaven. And I was like,
Mhm.
oh, that's so interesting. Cause like, even with like relationships, like my mom or whatever, like if I'm willing to do the dishes or the dinner or the whatever, it's like, it feels
Yeah.
fantastic. And if I'm
So happy to do it, right?
I'm so happy. And if I'm unwilling, then I'm like cutting carrots and I'm like, I have to do the dishes. So it's so good to play with all of your own inner world, not other people's stuff, but your stuff. What happens in you when all of a sudden all these doors you kept closing, you now say, okay, wait, what happens if I open that?
Yeah.
What happens if I open that? And then you keep being willing to say, what happens if I open? And I mean, if there's one question that people could continue to ask that would change their life is, what happens if I open this instead of keep it closed? So
Yeah.
breath is doing that. That's the most powerful thing breath is doing, because all of these areas have closed doors. Breath hasn't touched. Breath hasn't touched basic
Mm.
pelvic bowl. Breath hasn't touched genitals. Breath hasn't touched thigh bones. Breath hasn't touched, you name it. So now when we were working with the tiny area of what we said, this is my embodied experience, or maybe I really don't even have an embodied experience because that was my reality. I laugh now because I say, I ask people like, breathe into your body, or do you feel your body? And if someone said that to me years ago, I'd be like, I'm in my body. Like, I don't need you to ask me it, but I know now I wasn't, right? So it's like,
Right.
there's so many layers of inquiry that
Yeah.
it's always best for us to kind of take a seat and say, this is something another teacher of mine says, if you can wake up every morning and say, okay, you know what, at this point, I do know some things. Like some of us have gone to school, we've gotten degrees, we've worked on patients, we've had clients, we've built things. We have some level of like, hey, this is what I've observed and learned in the world. This is what I know today. Okay. But if you can at the same time say, I don't know so much about so much. And that slice of the pie is actually most of the pie. My knowing is like the tiniest sliver I've ever seen. And the more your consciousness grows, the more you see that. You're like, okay, I'm literally scratching surface. Okay, a little bit more. So if there's a part of our intelligence that keeps going, well, I don't know. I
Yeah.
don't know.
Hmm.
Then what reveals to us and what continues to take us on a journey will blow our mind, which all people want their mind blown. Like nobody wants to, we keep thinking like, I want to think about it. I need to think so hard about it, because that's the roots of our school. Traditional schooling is if you think hard enough, if you memorize, if you test, but that's a faulty, we have to readdress how we're educating, because it's really not about our wisdom and our intelligence. It's about manufacturing machines out of
Right.
us. And now we have machines that can actually do a lot of the computer. Like there's a lot of things that we don't have to do anymore, which I truly believe means, whoa, humans are finally invited to do their unique potential, which is be creators in a way that is not the same as a machine. Let the machines do the part
Right.
that's the more number part, right? They can now like put in an algorithm and do it better than us. That's what a lot of people are showing. Like, look at the computer does it better than you. And it's like, okay, cool. Give them all those tasks. Give us these other ones about the pulsing heart and the relating and the breath flow and
Mm-hmm.
it. I think that's where the divine stuff starts to really get to be like very all encompassing for me. Cause it's like, what do we do if we're not grinding and hustling for dollar bills to punch in on a clock and punch out of a clock? But instead, the literal premise of my life is to be a creator with a whole bunch of co-creators and to bring the unimaginable here now in a way that everybody's invited. Everybody, not some. This is not an exclusive party. This is for everybody to see, because everybody is given that seed when they're born.
Yeah. Yeah. Absolutely. Yeah. Yes, there's like yes to all the things, right? Um, so I'm gonna go back for a second and go to breath work in every part of your body, right?
Yes.
Working with my clients, that's often how we would work through a restriction,
Mm,
right? Was calling breath to that area. We're taught, like, I guess, foundationally in school, whatever, breath is in your lungs, right? You breathe with your lungs. And then there's some of us who go to bodywork school or different um, different education outside of that, you know, traditional education. And we find that we can breathe into other areas of our body to bring awareness to it and to heal it and to release the restriction in those areas and bring life to it again and speak to that area and say, I see you. I am here for you. It's okay to let go.
ooh,
Right. So, yeah. And this is why I wanted to have you on to speak on these things, because I know breath work from a body work perspective.
right.
Right. And you know it from yoga, from meditation, from,
Yeah. Yeah.
yeah, from
But why it's so cool that we're both delving into this, because as you just said those things, my entire being from the root all the way up
yeah.
knows that this means so much to you because of what it's done in you, through you,
Right.
transforming wherever you were restricted. Same goes for me, right? Like
Right.
we got to move into a model where we're all just speaking from our own direct experience. We're not speaking from things we've read. Yes, there's a certain level of study that can get us into
Right.
the playing field of like, what's the language? How do I start to give this into myself and into others? But really, when someone's able to be a very powerful guide, whether it's with their hands or their voice or their presence or whatever,
Mhm.
it's because that thing has touched them and changed them. So now they can say to other people, it's totally going to happen for you if it's sincere. This is the thing I say to most people is like, how you approach the beginning of something is so important because it flavors everything. Like a lot of people come to body work or they come to meditation or they come to whatever, and I'm not hating on it, but with very egoic presumptions about what
Mhm.
they like. I want to be a sexy yoga teacher. Like I
Right.
want,
Right. Right. Right.
and it's like, just call it what it is, people, because we're all different layers and it's fine. But then you're only going to get matched with the true level of whatever you went in with. So for me, when I went into these practices, I was terrified to a degree because I was like, change my whole life. I'm ready. Like, do something bigger than I know possible and let
Yeah.
me serve you because I don't know shit. And
Yeah.
I will fall to my knees every day if you promise to animate something larger because I don't got it. I don't want to pretend like I got it. And the amount of countless days, especially in the thick of all of this work where I was more restriction than I was freedom and I was more fear than I was love and all of these things,
Mm-hmm.
wailing on the floor, watching my body do things, scared of the amount of feeling I was feeling, and not aware of what, like just watching my hurricanes and watching my tornadoes and just being like, this is a shit ton of energy moving. Uh,
Yeah.
so once you've
Oh,
started it on your own, like it's also sacred. So if, for those that are listening to us, like if you want to approach anything, check in with yourself, like, and not to be a hater on yourself, but like, what's your motive? Why do you want the things you want? Like go deeper than just some of the superficial stuff, because then you'll be met with that same level of depth awakening in your
yeah.
body or in your mind or in your heart or whatever. It's all one whole, but we're all kind of approaching it from our own lens, our own path, and saying,
Right.
hey, this is how I see it. I'm going to offer it like this.
Yeah. Absolutely. Absolutely. And I mean, when you ask for it, it'll come.
I know I always say that to people. I'm like, I'm sorry because you can't play games and you can't play if you really.
Right. Right. I often tell people, because I think a lot of the health and wellness industry is light and love.
Yeah.
And
Right.
that's great,
Yeah.
but I don't work there
Mm,
because I'm the type of person that's going to crawl down in your darkness with you and
mhm,
help bring you back up because you shouldn't have to do it alone.
mm,
And when you're in that deep dark place, you need someone, I believe, to be like, it's okay. Like, I'll sit here with you for a bit, but we're not going to sit here forever.
ooh, yes.
Right.
Yeah.
You need someone, so to speak, to break you out of that embryonic sac
Mm,
so that you can take that breath of new life.
ooh,
Right.
yeah.
Yeah.
Absolutely. But I love that you said, hey, I'm going to sit right here in the dark with you. This
Yeah.
is how Sister Root started. I was basically like, I'm in a cave. We got to invite everyone into this cave. And it's very similar to the womb, right? Which for a lot of female embodied people, we're still at a place where we think that bleeding is gross. We feel ashamed. We don't know how to even,
Mm,
when I invite people to their womb space, they're like, no one's ever asked me this. And I'm like, isn't this fascinating? We all come from this. Is our strongest root of our creative source, but just to add on to what you were saying, you said, I'm going to sit with you right here in the dark, which is very much what I felt I was doing in my own self, but I also wanted to pioneer with people that too. So I was like, here we are in the dark, but we're not staying here. And I think that's where, like, it has a lot to do with just the genuine capacity of a person to really work through their things, because most of what's happening, I think, is a lot of people saying, oh, that's your parents' story or your dad, or that is so hard, like, if you didn't, like, I saw so many things during this year of COVID, like, where people were like, if you didn't do anything this year, that's okay. And I was like, I don't agree with that.
yeah.
I was like, I love you. And this year in your darkness can be your liberation. They are not separate. So only someone who's not yet awakened to that keeps saying, like, oh, that is hard. We can stay here forever. You can just always never go for the next thing. And I'm like, no, that doesn't resonate for me. Like, I want you to get into the light. I'm not in a rush, but just know you are light and you always have been.
Yeah. Yeah. You gotta let the love in.
Whoo, the thing about love, and it's different than so many other aspects of being here, is that you can't master love. You can master all of these
Yeah.
other, you can master art, like martial arts. You can do all these things, and you could be like, I'm going to become the best at this, and I'm going to skill set develop, and I'm going to just kill it. Sure, there's such an engine in us, like that masculine power that's just like refined and skilled and wants to like shoot an arrow at something and hit the target. Love is so different than that. Love is not bought, it's not trained, it's not mastered. It's everywhere and everything. And the only way we can really let it in is a true allowance. And we hear that from people, like, you have to just allow it. And that sounds good, but then we're like, I don't feel it. So what's happening in me, like, is how many restrictions are in me, right? How many
Right.
blocks on whatever level we want to speak to them, to where I know that love is everything to some degree, but I can't feel it at all. And it's just about allowance. It's not about me having to strive for it. We do not have to strive for love. Never have had to
Yeah.
strive for love.
Right. No matter how you were raised,
Yeah.
and if you were raised in a home where you had to perform or, act a certain way, whatever,
Yes.
to feel like you deserve the love, like that wasn't love. It wasn't love.
It wasn't. It
Love
was.
just is.
Mm, it just is. And it's ising all over the place at all times. At all times, and it's never
Yeah.
running out of surplus. This is what's so interesting about real love. And
Mhm.
words can do whatever they can do, but if you could throw the word out, because the word has become a little bit like confused with Valentine's Day and the deserving aspect of family and all these, the word itself tangles what it actually is, but the thing that it actually is will never run out. And it will
Right.
never run out on you, and it
Mhm.
will never shut a door on you, and it will never care anything that ever happened. It is fully flowing to you at all times.
Right.
I'm very interested in that because I will strive for so many things in my life. I want the organization that I'm building to grow into being one of the best serving organizations ever. I want to learn how to do all the things I don't know how to do in business. I want to grow XYZ, blah, blah, blah. Still more powerful than that is I never want to forget love is flooding the scene. And I know that I don't always remember. So then what is my main practice if I know day to day I have a lot of action steps and there's a lot of things challenging me to go to my next edge? What also am I doing to make sure I'm in a state of allowance?
Mhm.
Breathing, breathing, breathing. Always it's breathing. And so whether you're lying down in Shavasana or you're sitting up and closing your eyes to take a seat, you're walking around in a park, however often you can remember, wait, feel this breath right now, this inhale.
Mhm.
Okay. Now this next inhale, feel it. And now we're allowing this thing that's already been happening for us during this conversation, but we're on all these other levels. So maybe we didn't feel the breath in the same way we feel it if we go, hold on, fully allow.
Right.
And in asking ourselves to fully allow, we see how many like nervous tics we have to stop, block, all of these different things that then, oh, whoa, there's all of my patterns and why I can't fully feel allowing. So why I fully don't get that love is here all the time. It's here all the time, but I don't get it yet. So I just love that genuine journey of like, we really are all so much more caring than we talk to each other. Like I think
Yeah.
that one of
Yeah.
the things that breaks my heart right now, not just about America, but definitely about America, is how common it is to be mean, how common it is to have trolls online or whatever, this whole cultural norms, what they're like, people feeling so scared to say anything of their own opinion because they just think, well, I could literally be destroyed by somebody's, you know, attacks. And so then when I meet people and I bring them into our workshops and we start to go in, they really don't believe that it's a caring, wonderful place. And they don't believe that they're a caring and wonderful person when on the hard drive is your beating heart, your flowing blood, this breath, this love. So it's like, wait, we seek connection more than anything. And whether that be from me to my own self more and more, or from me to you and to all these other people more and more, yet there's so many patterns in most that are keeping them absolutely some level disconnected,
Right.
though they yearn so much for the very opposite of the thing they keep doing. So that is very interesting to look at for people, is like, you want this thing so bad and everything you're doing is keeping it from you.
Right.
Woo. So
Yeah.
then they can meet people like us who are saying, if you want that to change, come.
Exactly. Yes. Yes. And come as you are. Come broken. Come not knowing what the next step is,
Yeah,
because that's our job,
yeah, yeah.
right? We have the steps, not like a 12-step program, but just kind of like just show up
Yep.
and
Just show up. I mean, that could
show
be
up.
every podcast title and ending. Just show up, part 2. Just show up, part 3.
Exactly.
Because
Next time, just
yeah,
show up.
I mean, you could say that even in your partnership or with your kids or with friends. If you're trying to build business with someone, the area that reveals why it hurts so bad is that that person's just not showing up. And if they did, we could do 100 times more. They don't have to be perfect. They don't have to know. They don't have to, but they do have to show up. Show up is like what we were talking about before, willingness, because a lot of people are in the room unwilling, right? They're like arms crossed. And then I tell people, like when I was teaching yoga before we all went online, when we were in class space together, I'd say, hey, the potential of this hour we have together, or the 75 minutes, is profound. And if you know that and you choose to open all your doors, your mind doors, your body doors, your heart doors, and you just choose that you're not going to go in with all this prejudice, you're not going to go in with all this judgment, you're going to have a very different class than someone who comes in going, well, I paid for this, but I'm still a little bit unwilling. Right. And it's only unconsciously that they do that, because every time I invite that in people, I watch it all start to fall away. And I'm like, oh, they don't even
Yeah.
know. They don't even mean it. They just lived so much like that in their disagreeableness and in their, stubbornness or whatever. So I like to poke fun at it as best I can, because people want it to go. They don't want resistance to be the
Right.
first thing that they meet with everything. But even if we look at our own selves, if I look at me, oh, that's a first level response very often unconsciously as you resist the thing that you know you want.
Right.
Fuck.
Yeah. Take it. Right. Yeah. What I found in my experience in the past is I resisted many things
Mm,
because I didn't know who I was. So I was afraid to let other things in, right? Because I was afraid of getting hurt. And I feel that's so true for so many people, you know?
yeah,
And maybe you don't know who you are, and that's okay,
yeah.
but go find them.
Ah. And if you're open to going into it more, you were afraid of getting hurt
Yeah.
because you were hurt and you know what that felt like. So
Yeah.
then you started to build stuff, but like, I don't know if I want to do that again, right?
Right.
But I want to ask you, because I asked myself this even last night. I was feeling a very tender hurt in me that
Mhm.
was residue. Like it was a little bit, it was old, but it was being revealed in a moment of of last night. So it was a present moment of something, but it pulled up the past of something,
Yeah.
which is how it works, right? As we're doing this
Right.
work. And I was like, okay, what am I so afraid of right now? Cause like I'm like so afraid to totally touch this thing, right? Like, cause I keep kind of trying to be like, no, you don't want to get hurt. You don't want this thing to hurt you. And so it's just like bit, wall, wall, wall. And I was like, hold on, no, I don't want those walls anymore. And I know that. And these are some of the most core areas that I learned to wall. So I got to be super tender and okay with like,
Yeah.
keep looking at it. Why are you so scared to be hurt? And then I went more into it and I was like, because I gave that person everything and they were busy doing other things. Okay, perfect. Stay right there. Stay with that thing.
Yeah.
Then what? Okay, then they left. Okay, stay with the thing, right? And this gets so intense because depending on how core of a thing started to get cemented in you, however long ago, it's so many layers, but you still want to stay with like, there's a part in you that was never actually hurt. And so we have to keep going into all the parts that are still so afraid of the hurt.
Yeah.
And we
You gotta
have to keep
heal them all back.
with so much presence and so much genuine, like, okay, and so what? Because everybody might leave you. Because you know what? These things might happen. So if you still are moving through being afraid that you're going to be hurt, that's just true.
Mhm.
But what if you then don't live a life of any kind that you would want to live because of that? Are you going to be happy? Or can you actually be, you know, brave, we often say, or courageous, and just get out there, show up and go, this could very well be my destruction. You could very well, I'm totally giving you my shaky heart right here because I want to, because I don't see, for me, this is what I come to find, because I don't see another way. Like, I don't feel that I check out in my life if I'm not offering my heart fully. But
Yeah.
I'm very aware of every time I kind of go, oh, wait, that person could totally throw it
Right.
somewhere else. And then I go, but okay, that's okay because I'm not going to go anywhere else anymore.
Yeah.
I'm not going to go anywhere.
Yes.
And you know who else isn't going to go anywhere? Real love, real
Mhm.
source. So then you start to develop a relationship at a level that probably you hadn't developed yet, at least not consistently, that starts to be saving grace, where you go, okay, I don't know if I can get this from another person in form. This is my journey and it's been very intense because sometimes I'm like, where is someone else who can give me this thing? And I'm like, it's you in spirit. It's really important right now that you really get in there for what it really is and you really touch it. When I say touch it at its root, I'm talking about the real root, not just the human flesh root, though that helps us get there, but our source. What happens when we are source touching?
Yeah.
We're not broken. It doesn't even matter how many shells of us broke to touch that thing. You can then see, even to walk in saying I'm broken, that's just one level of the conversation. You need to be broken to be able to be what you actually are. So are
Yeah.
you broken actually, or are you open, or are you liberated, or are you love? They could all be the same thing. And if you tell someone, hey, instead of saying I'm broken, say I am love, that's a very different sentence, you know? And so
Yeah.
like
And it's a whole different energy to the whole thing.
I love that you use the word whole because we're whole. As babies, we come whole, we leave whole. We are not fragmented people. If we get this, then we won't seek a partner thinking you complete me. And then that partnership, instead of being a dependency that can be very confusing in that way, can be more of an uplifting empowerment of like, hey, you enhance something because this thing's already whole. And I know you already are. What happens when two wholes come together? And I don't think we've really lived that, like our parent, I think the common narrative is like you complete me, and I think that there's sweetness in that in a way, like I'm not against it, but it does create a lot of problems in
Yeah.
people deep down, right? Because they don't truly think they're good on their own, they don't truly feel aligned and liberated and free. And so for me, I want both. I want to know I'm whole, and I want to give everything to a partnership,
Right.
whatever, like whatever that partnership asks, but I don't want to see it as like a dependency where like, I don't know. It's all very personal for us to kind of figure out whatever things we want to go into, because some
Mhm.
people will really want to make a relationship the thing they need,
Right.
and that's cool,
Right.
right? But I just know for me, with the partnership I had and then it crumbling down and what I touched in myself and what I wanted to find out next was like, I want the next thing to be that I already know I'm whole and I already know they're whole. And then what
Right.
happens?
Right. Yeah. Yeah. We're very, yeah, I think we're taught that, yeah, we're supposed to complete each other.
Yeah.
But from a young age, I heard somewhere,
Mm.
that we are not meant to complete each other. We are meant to complement each other. Right. And so I kind of think of it as one of us is red and one of us is blue. And we're these beautiful, powerful colors on our own. And when we come together, we make purple, which is a beautiful color as well. Right. But we can still rock on our own.
I have to show you. This is at my altar here. My sister makes beautiful art, and I'm always working with fire and water. And you said
Mhm.
compliments, and very often to me, compliments are also contrast. And when
Yeah.
we, if we don't get that, then when someone contrasts us, we might feel intimidated or confused or mad, and we might be like, you need to be the same as me, you need to be the same, you're contrasting me right now, and it's making me like bring up all my stuff about possession and control and whatever, right?
Right.
So when I started to turn all that stuff on its head, and that compliment was also contrast, I was working a lot with fire and water and the masculine and the
Mhm.
feminine and
Mhm.
polarity and magnetism. And my sister made me this,
Wow.
I change like depending on what mood I'm in, like how do I want it to be,
Mhm.
but within the whole is everything. But I love that you said the blue and the red, because I'm very drawn to basically everything you just said there. And in many years of the last few years have been a lot about, like, I serve a lot of things. I don't know what's like for you, but for me, usually the things I'm serving externally, I've already worked through them internally. And so it's
Yeah.
like they're more of the offering, whereas whatever is still way more my like sacred secret delvings, they're not yet the workshop. They might be the workshop in a few years, right?
Right.
Um, so for me, like the dance of the polarity and what's possible in a partnership that comes together, knowing your two wholes, you're
Yeah.
going to complement each other and you're going to contrast the shit out of each other. And can that be what you love instead of what makes you feel fear? Because I know that
Right.
in my past partnership, it was harder to honor the difference. And I think
Mhm.
that that shows up in like everything, in social justice realms that I've been a part of, in political spheres, in whatever. As soon as somebody has a different opinion, do you freak out? Or are you like, hey, cool, look at all the difference? For most, it's a freak out. Oh no, they said it up. They don't say what I say.
Right.
Who needs to get out of the room, or who needs to get shot? Like the world that we come from is
Oh
very much
man.
like,
Yeah.
you say something different and I might kill you. And it's like, that's an extremely not mature response. I totally understand where it's coming from because we're not yet a mature society.
Mhm.
Like a civilized society means We allow every being to figure out who they are without having to interfere and say, I need to put my thing on you. I need to conflict you. I need to, no, but that means you have to get down with diversity. You have to get down with someone exploring something a little differently than the person right next to them. And that's something that one of my friends would say when she first started to come to Sister Roots. She was like, I didn't always have the same opinion as you. And I didn't always have the same opinion as most people in the room, but we were all saying what we genuinely felt because it was
Right.
safe. And I was like, that's the next level of how we can be together. When we get that, first we're unified, first we come as one whole people,
Yeah.
then no diversity is scary. It's just like a forest. I tell people, you walk out in a forest, there's this mother log, there's this other weird phylum of thing, there's this other thing. It's like so diverse, you can't even pretend that you could categorize it. And it's amazing.
Yeah.
Is the most amazing thing to experience is diversity. Like, and so I hope that we're ready for that as people. That like, I loved being from San Jose because I had a Muslim friend, I had a Black friend, I had a Spanish friend, I had a blah, blah, blah. So like to me, when I moved through the world from a very young age, I was like, lots of languages, lots of food,
Right.
lots of color. And I really liked it. And even when I was through Asia, I was usually like, especially in Bhaktapur, a town in Nepal I was in for a month, I was the only white person the whole month. My past partner was Black. I was at a lot of events. When I first started dating him, I went to his grandma's funeral.
Mm.
It was a beautiful thing. It was very intimidating to me because it was like maybe like 100+ people at this event, and it was like my first time to meet the family.
Oh,
And
wow. Oh,
exactly. So I was like, okay, I'm a loving person. So I'm like, put me in any arena. I'm just going to lead with my friendliness. And that's fine. I haven't really been in my head that much in social scenes unless they were very egoic. I would be in social, like clubs, Vegas. There were a lot of things that brought
oh,
out
yeah.
parts of me that were not good for me. They were very confusing. But this event, and because I was his partner, I got to go to the front row with his sisters. So I've had all these life experiences where I was like, I'm the one white woman sitting on a bench in the front with a whole bunch of Black people I have never met for one of the most sacred events of this entire family's life. And I
Yeah.
always felt like, thank you for giving me these experiences. Thank you for giving me these experiences. I was always saying, put me in rooms where I am the only one, because I don't mind that. I'm okay with that. I want to feel that. I want to feel whatever the universe wants me to feel. So like when we go into all of these realms of like, what's kind of cool, I'm thinking about it right now. The one thing that's not that different at all is our breath.
Yeah. We all breathe.
Have we ever been like, well, your breath is different than mine because you're like that. You're a woman, I'm a man. We're breathing differently.
Yeah. No,
No,
no, not at all.
no. So that's just also very beautiful that like at the core, if you can honor that we're unified, you will honor that we're diversified.
Mm.
People get afraid and they say, oh, you're trying to make us the same. You're trying to do sameness. No, the sameness allows the difference. That's like
Yeah.
they inform, just like you said with the compliments. They're compliments. They're
Yeah.
not fighters. They're not at war. So much of us approaches everything at war, right? We approach everything that arises in us at war. We approach anything that arises. How did that person just look at me? Did you see how they just looked at me? How am I talking? Do you hear how I'm talking to myself? And then you're like, oh my God, everything you're doing is
Yeah.
making a battle out of everything. What happens if you don't do that, even just 20%? Like, even if you did it just 10% less, you would start to feel more of that allowance. You would start to feel more of what we call grace. Very often people don't even know what grace is because they're so harsh in their life and they're so unwilling to let life touch them that they're like, no, like life's not miraculous. But when you start to let some shit go, you said it so beautifully when you were talking about the restrictions in the body releasing, and can you really let go? It's so scary in those moments that you actually let go, because there's a whole bunch of energy, past momentum energy, that's really in your grip.
Mm.
So you can hear the quote let go and you can really know you like the way that sounds,
Mhm.
but up until your body, mind, your somatics let it actually go, everything in you is kind of on edge. But what happens when you actually let go is not scary. It's actually profound. It's expansive. It's liberating. It's invitational. It's warm. It's floaty. It's so then what the hell is that? When you start to then have that in your experience, this thing that was terrifying to me was actually warm and gooey.
Right. Yeah. Yeah.
Okay, this is very good direct experience to have
Yeah.
because then you start to see you're working on many planes. And I love all the planes. I love working on all dimensions with people because I get how tangled we are and I get how much of an honor it is to ask people to detangle. And I love it. I love watching people get free. Oh my God. Like to watch how their chest sits or their throat opens or their eyes soften or like there's just these like subtle things that happen when someone's being set free that I just like it gets me so emotional because I'm never over it. I'm like, woo, like this
Yeah.
is what it's about. Like,
Right.
and I tell people you don't just get free by talking about being free. You get free by looking at all the places you're not free. And that's uncomfortable for the personality because the last thing they want to tell you is all the places they don't work, right? They're like
Right.
trying to make sure that you think they work. And you're saying, no, no, no. I need you to tell me everywhere it doesn't work. I need to see every
Yeah.
limitation because
Yeah.
if I see every limit, that's how we set you free.
Right.
Those chains are the reason you're not flying. We don't want to sit talking to you while you're in chains going fly, 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 fly. Those are like affirmations. No, I want to,
Yeah.
what the fuck is your chain? I want those chains gone. And then on its own,
Yeah.
you lift.
And yeah, and those chains, it's like we have the keys
Mm,
to unlock ourselves from those chains. But sometimes we have to go digging in those dark places of ourselves to find the keys.
again, I think it's all the time. It's
Yeah.
all the time that you got to excavate, excavate, excavate. And at first, it's just super overwhelming because it's just a lot
Yeah.
of work to get to the root, to
Yeah.
get down to your own key. But
Yeah.
once you got your own key, then you start to go into every room that you locked and you get to unlock these freaking doors.
Yeah. And you get to do it yourself. And
Mm,
I think when you do it yourself, well, I mean, you have to do it
yes.
yourself, right?
Yes.
But that's when you find out who you are. And that's when things aren't so scary anymore,
Totally.
right? And you can show up and just be. And you don't have to show up for anybody else until you're ready, if that's your calling, right?
Totally.
Yeah.
Yeah. And in Sister Roots, when we say beyond me becoming we, it's like you can't go beyond something that you aren't yet totally. So you can't go beyond a me. You can't say like, because there's a lot of people who are like, oh, I serve this and I do charity, but they aren't really that empowered yet as them. So yes, there's some aspect of how they're helping, but it would be tenfold if their me was empowered from their own unlockings, right? And like you beautifully said, hey, there's no trajectory that's rushing any of this. It's very specific to your unveiling, and it's different for all of us how that kind of the tempo of it.
Mhm.
Um, so once you totally embody the me and you figure out, you talked about a vehicle before we logged on together on this. I
Right.
think, right? We talked about, and I'd
Yeah.
love to hear
Yeah.
what
So I talked about how our bodies are the vehicles of our life, right? It's the only vehicle we have. And if we're not putting the right gas in it, if we're not getting tune ups, if we're not changing the tires, our bodies aren't going to work the way they're supposed to.
yeah. And then spirit and energy and all these things can't inhabit the house of the body in the most
Right.
powerful way that it can. So
Right.
if you get your engine, if you get this vehicle tuned up, smoothed out, refined, you got direction, because a lot of times we're going in the wrong direction. We're going 110 miles an hour. And I say this to my friends because my first boyfriend drove like a crazy motherfucker and I always felt scared as fuck. And I
Mhm.
was like, are you in a car going 115 miles an hour that doesn't know the direction it's headed? Because that's called an unstable nervous system. That's called like all the things that most people are going through. And then they go, oh, I am that vehicle. I am out of control. So if we get the me in control, we
Yeah.
embody it, grounding practices. What's my nervous system? What does stimulation do to me? What is sensation? We start to get online as a me. Then our ability to affect the we, right?
Mhm.
To go out and say, like you said, a lot of us, we just want to guide people. You're still going to have to unlock your own locks. I can't unlock your locks, right?
Hey.
Have a good time. I can't unlock your locks, but I can witness you unlocking your locks. And there's nothing I'd rather do. Right. And that for us, like when we're talking about our curriculum, it's the me and the we connection. You're never just one. You're not separate and you're not totally dissolved. You're both. And you have to, there's too many of us thinking you're either one thing or the other. Like you're either an individual or
Mm.
you're collective, or you're either a me or a we, or you're either right or you're wrong. And it's like, this is just the level of the rhetoric of the mind.
Right.
Move beneath it, go under to the vast intelligence, which includes all things. It's all one. When you get that beyond just a quote, then you go, oh, I am polar opposites. I am me. I am a we. I am you. Okay, this is very cool. Isn't this
Yeah.
very different?
Right.
Then nothing's as scary as it was if I was absolutely a me by myself in this world. Or for some people, totally dissolved in something that doesn't have their unique expression. So,
Mhm.
whatever, I'm just not myself, but I'm all these other things. It's like, no, you're both. And if you can really honor that, then you're going to show up as this unique contribution that's going to touch people because it's going to be so unfabricated.
Yeah.
It's going to be real. And that's my thing right now with anyone is like, so much saturation process kind of everywhere where you get tastes of stuff, but for me I kind of go, doesn't feel real. Like it feels like you said, the love and the light, like you
Yeah.
come into, I before I came into the yoga world, I never talked about love and light in the way that I hear so commonly placed, but I felt it all the time.
Mhm.
So there's a lot of people who think that, like there's a lot of people who don't call themselves healers who are healers,
Right.
and it and they give it in every meal, and they never you see it. There's these people I've met around the world, so many abuelitas, so many grandmas, so many people where I'm like, you are the guru. I
Yeah.
know it when I see your eyes and I see the way you're looking at me. I
Mhm.
know what's happening right now.
Mhm.
You are very holy, and it doesn't matter if anyone knows, because you know. That is very important. I believe that it's like, it doesn't matter if everyone knows. We're in this culture where everybody wants everyone to like them. Like, I need to have so many followers and I need to
Yeah.
make sure that my platform is so popular. And I'm just like, like, and that's my thing. Like, sure, some people really do want to build crowds and do whatever you need to do. But for me, I'm like, it hasn't lived there for me. It's lived in
Yeah.
the most unexpected places with the most unexpected people in the most larger than life ways, in something like a biscuit being handed to me. And I was like, this is the moment. And I keep getting these moments. And I'm so glad for them because they're so disguised in a way, because they're so simple,
Mhm.
like the breath.
Yeah. So simple.
Yeah. Should we do some breathing? What are you going to say?
Yeah. You want to walk us through a little bit?
Yeah. Yeah. Let's do a breath
So
stuff.
let's do that. And then talk to us more about sister roots and stuff afterwards.
Okay. That sounds
Okay.
great. We
Yeah.
can let's get ooey gooey and
Wait,
then
wait. Juicy. Juicy is like a common word that's been coming up lately.
okay, let's get juicy.
Yeah.
I just had a really juicy orange for breakfast. So that's right on. And it reminds me of the place that we got into together for wellness hour on Wednesday. Because
Yeah. I was in it
you
on
were
Wednesday.
feeling it. And I was like, ooh, I
Yeah.
like when people are feeling juicy. So I invite you, if you're here with us, to close the eyes. If you don't want to close the eyes, you just take the gaze somewhere where we're kind of mitigating distractions. So maybe like a solid wall or carpet. It's always nice to have the spine upright because it helps just open up the channel. This nervous system, everything weaving inside of us is all in this center. So we do want to start to orient to the center, our center. You might even lift the head gently, kind of like a balloon, up into the sky, creating a little bit of space in between the discs, the vertebrae of the spine. Many physicists, different people working with kind of the realms of science, they're like able to see that the atom down to its very, very core is just spaciousness, that we're just space. So as you're breathing, inhale up into the balloon, up in the skull, and exhale down into pelvic bowl roots. Inhale up. Exhale down. As you're doing this refining of your center up into the skull on the inhale, and down into the roots for your exhale, just feel the whole body as spaciousness. Every cell down to its very core is just wide open space. Relax the jaw, the muscle of the tongue, the throat, the eyes in, eye sockets. Wide open spaces. Inhale and exhale. Inhale, rising. Exhale, rooting. The two poles flowing in between. Watch the breath. Inhale, up the center, up the spine. Skull lifts. Exhale, down the center. Fully release whatever's stagnant. All the way exhale, complete exhale. Naturally, the inhale rebounds, fills low belly, fills lungs, fills collarbones all the way up. You inflate. And as you exhale, like the balloon, deflate all the air, nice, leaving the body, completely leaving. Inhale, very gentle but full, filling up. And exhale, emptying out. Keep unwinding anything that feels tense just by touching the breath to it, like Tiffany said. It just needs to be greeted. It hasn't been met yet with the breath. So as you inhale, find a space that hasn't been met. There it is, contact, illuminate. And as you exhale, you soften, release, maybe just a tiny bit of a release. And that next inhale, you might go into that same space if it feels like it could use some extra greetings. And exhale, softening, opening, releasing. You might find a new space if it feels intuitive. The body might show you a new place. Also, if there's nothing arising as you're hearing this, that's also fine. There's so much more intelligence probing right now, even if you don't know. It's okay. Let's take 3 more inhales and exhales. And something I like to offer before we come back more obviously to each other. Do you feel so serious right now? And if so, just by noting it, can you shift it? Like, whoa, I can just start to feel a little bit more buoyancy, a little bit more lightness just by noting, whoa, I took that serious. This happens a lot as we become adults. We start to feel serious. But play is what this whole thing is, to come and create, to be, to see, and to do so together. Let's take one more inhale. And exhale, arriving us back more obviously to each other. If you want to roll the shoulders or stretch the arms, it can be nice to reach up. Take a breath. Beautiful.
Thank you.
Yeah, my pleasure. It's always mind blowing to me how just a few minutes, it like,
Yeah.
it's a new tone.
Mhm. Yeah.
So
So how do our listeners connect with you?
yes, so sisterroots.com. Our handle on Instagram is at We Are Sister Roots. We have courses that are exploring all of what you just heard Tiffany and I talk about in this conversation. You know, going inside, it brings everything up. And so we have Wellness Hour, which is a free offering every Wednesday morning from 9 to 10. And that's just like a bite-sized piece to like start, you know, begin wherever you are. You don't have to be further along. And then we have these courses that are 4 weeks and these conversation series where they start to be more, you know, they build on each other. They build on each other and they branch. Our next course is March 19th. It's a Friday. It's for 4 Fridays, 9 to 11 a.m. because starting the morning is like one of my new favorite things since we all got on Zoom. I was like, well, people can block their calendar. You know, we can shift things a
Right.
little differently than we used to. So we're playing with different time frames and seeing what that brings out in the the workshop
Right.
space. So the Seed to Bloom is our foundational workshop. It's how we started in 2016 because we are nature, we are the elements. When we really get that, it can be extremely empowering to work with fire and water and air and space and earth, you know, in a way that shows us who and more of what we really are. And then we go out and we live that with each other. So we have that course. We have an empowerments course, which is really about, I found when I was working with people in the workplace, which it doesn't just have to be the workplace, but very often it was showing up here. There was like a lot of pretending, like how I am at work is different than how I am at home. And do I feel empowered at work? And I was like, if work is most of your life, we really want to make sure you like how you are at work. And
Yeah.
so there's another course we're doing that also starts on, I think it's the 24th. It's like a week or two after the Seed to Bloom, that's called Empowerments. And it's 4 powerful archetypes about, hey, like, do you want to do more work in the world than you maybe are signed up for? Or maybe you want it to be with a little bit more profoundness in how you are doing the work.
Yeah.
That's what that course is about. And then we have something called Taboo Talks, which is kind of like what you and I are doing right here. Like, we need to air out all of these things we've never talked about. So Taboo Talks, in that very rarely are we talking about God, sex, money, and loss openly. Just like, what do you think from a child? Like we know most of what we believed as a child is what's living in us as an adult. And a
Mhm.
lot of that is just fear motives. And so we want to start to like de-stick this stuff so we can just inform those areas of our life with more light and more clarity for our own selves, instead of what society said this is what it is. So, and then the next thing of that is that we haven't yet had all male offerings, but we're going to be having Brother Roots offerings that are specific to men coming together and having some conversations, because we started as women coming together, and it's a sacred offering to be able to say we can untangle certain things because there's a level of resonance.
Yeah.
And what we've been finding over these years, because men have always been a part of the community, just not as much directly in the workshops until this last year, the men need to come together, and it's so much harder for them to
Yeah.
actually say it and do it and understand what's going to happen, because it's like a very new playing field.
Yeah.
So conversations with men is coming, and there's just going to be so, you know, a rich field of, we want to live a new way and we want to live that way together.
Yeah.
So that's the call for sister and brother roots, and going beyond the me and becoming the we. It's just so fruitful to do that, and inspiring, and it's infectious in its own way, just like us having this conversation.
Mhm.
Like something else existed here because you and I brought it together, right?
Right.
Versus if we were staying apart. So
Right.
I'm so grateful that you reached out and we got to be able to put this magic together, because from the moment we started to connect, I was like, woo, like she's not going to hold back. I'm not going to hold back. And that's one of the coolest things to meet. You never know what you're going to meet in people. Everyone creates a sacred combination. It's unique to its own, but
Mhm.
I really love that we are not withholding anything together. So thank you for offering that to me, because it is something I value a lot.
Excellent. Well, thank you for being here. Thanks for showing up.
You
Before we go, do you have any book recommendations? I'm a book nerd, so
You're a book nerd.
yeah.
Well, I kind of want to tailor it to something that would be like very, what are you like hardcore vibing with right now? Or like, what are you excavating? Like, is there something you're kind of obsessed with right now?
Everything.
Oh,
No.
okay. I had a feeling you were going to say that. Okay, but so that,
Everything. No. Do you have any books for maybe breath work or for meditation or for things in that realm?
yes, I do. There's a great book that started my meditation journey called Wherever You Go. I have it right here. Wherever You Go, There You Are, by
Mm,
Jon Kabat-Zinn, and it's like a bite size. It's a page or two. And he's done so many wonderful things, but his kind of specific in to the meditation is working with people who come from having a lot of pain in their body. and
mm.
and what he was most fascinated by was, is the problem the pain, or is it the relationship to the pain? And this gets really interesting.
Oh, yeah.
It's the same with fear. Is it the fear itself that's scary, or is it the relationship to the fear? It's So when you start working with people who are in deep pain, or like he created an entire like rehabilitation hospital basically based on that. The most powerful thing about meditation is that we're not trying to change your pain. We're looking totally at your relationship to it, or to
Mhm,
fear, or to limitation, and that in
mhm.
itself remakes everything. So that, again, that's Wherever You Go, There You Are, by Jon Kabat-Zinn. And then if you're like, that's more like a little bit masculine because it's like functional stuff. But if you're into like the feminine energy and wanting it to go more wild and free in a genuine way for yourself, there's a book called Awakening Shakti by Sally
Mhm.
Kempton. And we had a course we did like 6 months ago where I'm like in love with the yoga goddesses. And they're they're unique depending on how you, like I said earlier in the conversation, the intention you have with something is very important.
Yeah.
If you want something to use it, if you want something to honor it, woo, different.
Yeah.
Different. And so I invite those that are really like, especially if you're a female, not to say that men won't also have a radical time, because they will, because we all need to make the masculine and feminine divine. And we're so distorted. We're so distorted at what we think those two things are. And so they're fucking with all of us. But the feminine energy at its raw and its unbridled is why we're all here, is birth coming out, is sound leaving the voice, is movement and dance. And that's something everybody gets invited to. And so if we want that freely, this book, Awakening Shakti, invites you to these different embodiments of yogic roots that are so divine. And then you get to try them on for yourself and see.
Cool.
Yeah.
Cool. I'm about it.
Hey.
About it. Well, thank you so much. All right. Well, I will make sure that we get all your links and stuff put in the post notes so people know how to connect with you. And we're gonna have to do this again
Yes,
about
please.
something. I mean, I'm sure we'll figure
Yes,
it.
please.
We could probably talk for hours, but
Yes. Yes.
yes, we'll have
Well,
to do this again.
you're in front of like you. I don't know. Is your heart that, or is that a heart behind you, or are those?
So
Because
this
to
is,
me,
yeah, no, so
oh, okay, wait, put your head back there. What I thought it was is either a heart or wings, but a fire and water. And we were talking about red and blue. So we could, I don't, whatever you want the next conversation to be about, I'm going to show up for. But if it wants to be about compliments and contrast, fire and water, polarity. That's the stuff
Yeah, I think that's might what it have to be.
I'm into it right
Yes.
now.
So
And look at
this is an Android Jones. He's a digital artist. And the tapestry is just a portion of the entire piece, right? So the entire piece, this one
Mhm,
goes up into a brain,
mhm,
right?
mhm.
And then this one goes down into a heart. It's
Yes.
it's oh, it's everything.
Yeah.
So
I
yeah, that's what that
Yeah.
is.
Thank you
Yeah.
for elaborating because I couldn't see their faces meeting in the center.
Right,
Just
I
their
know. Yeah,
faces
so
there
it's
in the
kind of like
center, which is better. You're like, hey.
I like sitting in the middle because you just like it's really
Yeah.
pretty in itself like this,
Yes.
right? And then you get to see what it is
Yeah.
and you're like, "Wah!"
Yeah.
Like
That's how I felt when you leaned. I was like, oh,
yeah. Yeah, yeah,
oh.
yeah.
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 Yeah. No, I would love to dive into all things basically like we perceive we're separate, but we're also unified. And that's why it's so cool to be human beings together is that we're
Yeah.
dancing in between those both.
Yeah. Cool.
Cool.
Well, thank you. We'll talk again.
Yeah. We'll see you soon. Okay.
Okay. Bye.
Okay. Bye, Tiffany.